This is Andy Schmuckler, the guy with a better human story, experimenting here with using music as a theme. This is Jethro Tull doing some very nice stuff with Bach. When I say a better human story, I'm referring to a unified vision of our situation as human beings on this planet and some of the struggles we have to create a world that works and even American democracy survives is the immediate thing I'm going to be talking about. But it's all part of a larger picture about whether human civilization is going to be able to survive on this planet for the long haul. But right now, I want to talk about the situation in America, where the survival of American democracy is generally recognized, among a lot of people anyway, to be at stake in the upcoming presidential election. Just yesterday, I made a video in which I concluded that it appeared that the question of who is going to head the Democratic ticket had been resolved, that Joe Biden's defiance of the pressures to step down had won the day. But since then, it has appeared that no, it is not over. And I find that encouraging because this is such a must-win election. And it seems pretty clear that Joe Biden's opinion that he is the best person to go up against Donald Trump and defeat him and save our democracy in the process, that belief seems pretty clearly to be wrong, though, of course, one never knows exactly how the future is going to unfold. You still have to make a judgment based on the evidence available. And I've looked at the evidence, and a lot of other people have looked at the evidence and come to a very different conclusion. And starting with Nancy Pelosi's statements about, oh, well, I'm all for Joe Biden deciding. Subtext, I'm not accepting that he has decided, even though he's made these firm declarations. So it may be that in the coming days, there will be a new decision coming from Joe Biden. I don't take it for granted that that's the case, but I've noticed that the futures markets are saying that they presently think that Joe Biden being at the head of the ticket is less than a 50-50 proposition. I think he's in the low 40%. It's not that the futures markets, wisdom of the crowds and all that are necessarily correct. But that is an indication that the game's still going on. And people have said the sooner the better. I think Pelosi said, time is getting short. Meaning for him to back down, to step down, I guess. And if time is getting short, then the sooner the better. But at the same time, even if the sooner the better is true, it is also true, I would say, that the proper preparations be made for this to be executed in the optimal, the maximally positive, impactful way for guaranteeing, not that there's going to be a guarantee, for maximizing the chance that the cause of American democracy will triumph over its replacement by a fascistic force with a fascistic leader leading an increasingly fascistic party. So those preparations might take a few days. In particular, I would like to see crafted the home run of a speech that President Biden could deliver when he speaks to announce that he's taking this step. And I think at the same time announces that he's going to help lead the way to the best possible process by which his replacement will be found. I think it's a good time for presidential leadership. I think the more that he is seen as leading, the better. Well, that might take a few days to craft. Maybe somebody could sit down and craft a great speech overnight, and so it doesn't have to delay things much. But here are my thoughts about if I were given the job of crafting that speech. I'm not going to try to deliver that speech here. It would take me longer than I've put into this process because you need to find the words. Incidentally, one of the questions is this something that the President of the United States could deliver as a speech to the American people? There are proprieties about what can and cannot be appropriately said in such a speech. The president he's the leader of the country, and at the same time, he's also a political figure. And a political speech is not properly delivered like from the Oval Office or from one of the podia that presidents have access to and sometimes talk to the American people from. So that would be one question that I would ask is, can this be delivered as a speech to the American people? One reason to thinking it might is he has taken an oath of office in which he says he's going to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And so keeping that oath is really part of what this whole thing is about. How do you protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and prevent the election of somebody who's already taken that oath and violated it when he was president of the United States and has indicated he's going to go even further in that direction? So there's a line that might be finessed in a quite appropriate way, so that, that would be great if he could deliver this speech to the American people, but it is also the speech of the guy who's the leader of the Democratic Party. So I don't know how that line can be finessed, or if you basically have to accept that it's not a speech to the American people. But in that speech, which I think could be a home run, even though Biden himself is not an orator by a long shot, still he can do a few things. The first thing I think he can do is indicate that he has been persuaded to, that in spite of his own deep desire to run for another term and to serve as our president for another term, he has been persuaded that the interests of the nation are for him to do otherwise. And therefore, to model, here is a man who is putting nation above his own selfish interests, which is a great contrast to the alternative, the Republican rival that he will be up against, who continually puts self above everything. How far you go with describing the evidence for the utter selfishness of Donald Trump, who has just been an amazing human being in terms of not really caring about much of anything about other than meeting his own needs, self-enrichment, self-aggrandizement, self-protection to keep himself out of jail. It is a very stark record that anybody could write, any decent historian could write a 30-page chapter just showing in detail how selfish this guy is. No reason to go very far down that path, but at least to highlight that difference. And then there's the question of why is it that the nation so desperately needs for the Democratic Party to put forward the best possible candidate for winning in November? Biden can say whatever he wants about what he thinks his capacities would be to serve well because he's got this one term behind him. I personally think the second term would not be so good because I think he is deteriorating. He can say whatever he wants about that. But the important thing is that the Democrats obligation is to do everything possible to win, because the alternative to the Democrats winning is take the powers of the presidency being put in the hands of somebody who has already committed crimes and with presidential powers, whatever the Supreme Court says, and that's a whole nother thing that we eventually are going to have to confront very seriously. But there are clear crimes that have been committed, and as a president, he probably can't refer to them as crimes, but he can say something like a man who tried to overturn what was manifestly a clear and secure and valid, a legitimate election. He tried to overturn it. This is not the person. And then we can refer to Project 2025 and things that have been said about utilizing the Justice Department as a weapon in the hands of a ruler, basically a top-down dictatorship. And that's why it's essential to win, and that is why I, Joe Biden, am having to withdraw. So sacrificing self for a nation, and then putting a picture of what's at stake in this election, why the Democrats absolutely have to field their very best candidate, as best can be judged. And then there's the question, well, who's going to replace it and how's that going to be determined? And I think that the president should say, like I heard Congressman Adam Smith say, who would you replace him with? He said, well, it's not my job to replace him. It's not any one person's job to replace him, to choose who would be the replacement. And therefore, it should not be, oh, therefore the vice president, she should be one of the people that gets considered, but it is the Democratic Party in the form of the over 3,000 delegates that have been elected who collectively should make this decision. And so he should indicate, here's the process by which we're going to come quickly to a list of our best possible nominees. It isn't the ideal way, but we have to do this in a hurry. And there is general consensus about who should be on that list. No more than a half dozen people. And Kamala Harris and Gretchen Whitmer and Governor Newsom of California and Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania and maybe Governor Moore of Maryland. These are the people that are talked about. We got to get to that list quickly. I got no great ideas about how to do it, but the American people should understand this has to be done. And then between the time that list is quickly arrived at and the convention, which is going to be in a little bit more than a month, to arrange some forums in which all of 6 of these people, or 5 or whatever, not too many, are going to deliver speeches to the nation if the television networks can be induced to cover them, which I think they could, because this is going to be American Idol taken into the playing for keeps with American democracy competition. But each one of these people then will try out for the position by delivering a speech which shows why the American people will choose them with their positive vision and will choose them with their ability to prosecute the case against choosing Donald Trump or the Trump party going forward. This already will be getting a lot of attention to the essence of any campaign. The Democratic campaign is both for give us 4 years to do some good work for the American people, like we've already done in the past 4 years, and don't choose this, which is an existential threat to America as in the form that our founders bequeathed it to us. So for a few weeks, we've got the possibility of giving each of those people 15 or 20 minutes of time to perform for the delegates and for the rest of the nation what their campaign would be, and have people, particularly the delegates, judge which one of these people will be the most effective person once we understand that winning this election is our job, because the stakes are so very, very high. And then when we get to the convention, there is the ability to have another round of speeches from these people. And it doesn't have to be a multi-ballot thing, and this is important to note. It can be on the very first ballot. We can get to a conclusion with ranked choice voting. Or if you want to have one ballot before that so that potential candidates can endorse having their withdraw and endorse having their followers give their support to somebody else. I don't know which of those is better, but within the first couple of ballots, have ranked choice voting, have already prepared a computer program that can quickly go through the stages of processing ranked choice voting, where the sixth place person's following is eliminated and goes to other people, then the fifth and fourth and the third, and then you end up with two people, and one of them is sure to have a majority, and that is the nominee. The delegates to this convention will all have been selected from Democratic stalwarts around the country, whether they're the optimal people, they're the people who ran as delegates for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. She might be the one that they choose, but whoever they choose through that process, we get quickly at the convention to a nominee that those people, between 3,000 and 4,000 people, will have collectively judged to be the best person to go, with the goal of winning in November to preserve American democracy. That's it. I've seen some other plans. I don't like any of the other plans as much, but I also don't have any particular reason to think anybody's going to pick up my plan. It would be good not to have it be automatic, that it goes straight to Kamala Harris, because I think she should have to compete with the others. I've heard Adam Smith, who I think has done a good job on TV lately, say that he thinks she would be good for prosecuting the case against Donald Trump, because she is an experienced prosecutor and she's shown prosecutorial abilities. Well, if that's what rules the day, fine. If I were a delegate, based on what I now know, I would go with Gavin Newsom, because I think with him, we don't have to overcome any kind of bigotries in the American electorate to win. I've heard the testimony of a black woman who says she's to be afraid to have Kamala Harris head the ticket, that what we need is a straight white man. Gavin Newsom qualifies in that way, and we really have to put the priority on maximizing a chance of winning. But the other thing about Gavin Newsom that draws me to him, and I'd like to see how he performed in that competition. But he's a fighter. He has picked some fights. He's done a good job of picking fights, and he's cleaned the clock of DeSantis on Fox News. He's on Fox News because he picked a fight. Democrats have needed somebody who's more of a fighter than we've had for a very long time. So that would be my vote, but I'm not a delegate. I'll go with whoever they choose. And I don't think there's any problem about losing any contingency in the Democratic electorate because it wasn't immediately handed to Kamala Harris. I think that she gets a good, fair crack at it of persuading people I think that people recognize this is a must-win election. So we don't want to do something for reasons other than this is our best chance. So if Joe Biden quickly lays out that process and then leads the way into executing that process between now and the Democratic convention, I think that that's dynamite. I think that he will look good. I think he will cement his position in American history as somebody who did some very important things, of which stepping down from the ticket at this moment is one. And the idea that what's important is preserving democracy, of protecting the basic values of the system that our founders bequeathed to us, including the rule of law, and not handing power to somebody who has been given license by the Supreme Court to commit more crimes even than he did the first time around. I think that the whole of the Democratic electorate and a lot of other people besides, including people who voted for Nikki Haley in Republican primaries, will think that the outcome is fair, that the judgments are legitimate, that the judgments are also reasonably sound, and we will have a really good chance to save American democracy. And the stakes don't get any bigger than that. So if you like my efforts here, I hope that you will like, you will follow, you will subscribe, whatever the deal is I'm supposed to. I feel like I got something else to say. I hope that the American democracy will survive this really challenging moment in our history, because the survival of human civilization actually depends a lot on having America serve as a leader of the free world. It depends a lot on our not going over to the side of fascism and becoming an ally of Vladimir Putin and his war crimes. It depends a lot on our dealing with climate change in a responsible way. We're at a crossroads. We got to choose right. Thank you.